The wind carried dust and sorrow across the lonely Texas plains that night. A rancher named Cole Turner rode through the fading light, his horse's hooves echoing against the silence. He wasn't searching for anyone. He hadn't searched for anything since his wife died 3 winters ago. But when he saw the flicker of a lantern by the roadside cabin, something in his chest stirred. The flame trembled like a heartbeat in the cold, and beside it stood a woman clutching a child, her eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Her name was Mara James, a widow who had come to town weeks ago with nothing but a baby boy and a half-broken wagon. Folks said her husband died in a mining accident, leaving her to fend for herself. The town offered pity, but no help. And now, with a storm brewing and no roof safe enough to hide under, she stood trembling as the thunder rolled. When Cole dismounted, she stepped forward, voice cracking between desperation and shame. "Please, sir, I need your help." Cole saw the dirt on her face, the tear streaks cutting through it like rivers in dry land. "What's wrong, ma'am?" he asked softly, taking off his hat. Mara hesitated, biting her lip. "There's a man coming," she whispered. "The one who owns this cabin. He wants to take my boy, says I owe him money I never borrowed. He said if I had a husband, someone to stand by me, he'd back off." Cole's eyes darkened. He'd seen men like that before. Cruel, rich, thinking they owned everything, including people. Mara's hands trembled as she clutched her shawl tighter. "Please, be my husband. Just for tonight. He's coming after sunset." The words left her lips like a prayer she was too ashamed to say twice. Cole's heart pounded in his chest. He hadn't thought of himself as anyone's protector anymore. But looking at her, her broken courage, her mother's fear, he couldn't turn away. "All right," he said after a long breath. "Tonight, I'll be your husband." Her eyes widened, a tear falling before she could stop it. They hurried into the cabin. The room was small, barely holding a cot, a stove, and a crib for the baby. Mara lit the fire, her hands shaking as she poured water into a pot. Cole stood by the window, watching the horizon darken. The storm was closing in, thunder and trouble both. "You didn't have to do this," she said quietly. "You don't even know me." He turned to her, his gaze steady. "You're a mother trying to protect her child. That's all I need to know." As the rain began to fall, Cole found himself drawn to the quiet rhythm of her voice as she soothed her crying son. There was something haunting about it, soft yet strong, like a song sung through pain. When a knock came at the door, the sound split the air like lightning. Mara froze. "That's him." Cole's jaw tightened. He reached for the old rifle leaning by the wall and nodded for her to step back. The door creaked open, and the man on the other side grinned, a grin too sure of its own power. "Evenin', Miss James," the man drawled, stepping inside uninvited. He smelled of whiskey and rain. His eyes darted to the child, then to Cole. "And who's this?" Cole met his gaze without blinking. "Her husband," he said firmly. The man's smirk faltered. "Didn't know you'd married, Mara." She kept her head low, whispering, "We kept it quiet." The man's eyes narrowed. Convenient timing. He stepped closer, but Cole blocked him, his presence calm but dangerous. "You heard the lady," Cole said. "You've got no business here." Lightning flashed behind the window, outlining the stranger's face, a cruel twist of greed and frustration. "You think one night of lies will change her debt?" he hissed. Cole's hand stayed on the rifle. "I think you'd best leave before I decide to make this permanent." The man spat on the floor but backed away, muttering curses. As he vanished into the storm. When the door shut, Mara sagged against it, shaking. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "He'll come back." Cole looked at her and said, "Then I'll still be here." For the first time in years, Mara felt something close to safety. She looked at Cole, the stranger who'd become her protector in a single night, and saw in his eyes not pity, but strength. The baby slept again, the storm easing outside. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling with sincerity. Cole gave a half smile. "Get some rest, Mara. I'll keep watch." She wanted to say more, to ask who this man really was, but the exhaustion pulled her under before she could. As the fire crackled low, Cole sat by the window, staring into the rain. His past weighed on him, the wife he couldn't save, the ranch he worked alone. But tonight felt different. Protecting Mara and her child stirred something he thought long dead. Outside, the thunder faded, but he knew danger hadn't passed. Somewhere in the darkness, the man's words echoed, "You'll pay for this." Cole loaded his rifle again and whispered to himself, "Let him try." When dawn broke, sunlight spilled through the cracks in the wood. Mara woke to find Cole still sitting, awake and silent. The boy cooed softly, reaching for him. Cole smiled faintly and let the child grab his finger. "He likes you," Mara said. "Most men don't." Cole shrugged. "Most men don't deserve him." Their eyes met. Two souls scarred by loss yet bound by something new, fragile but real. Mara's lips parted to speak, but outside came the sound of hooves. The man had returned, and this time, he wasn't alone. Cole rose slowly, his every move measured. Through the window, he counted 3 riders. "Stay inside," he said. Mara's heart pounded. "You can't fight them alone." He glanced back at her. "I've fought worse for less reason." The men dismounted, one shouting, "Bring out your husband, Mara. Let's see how brave he is in daylight." Cole stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand, his shadow long across the dirt. The wind carried the scent of gunpowder and rain. Behind him, Mara whispered a prayer she didn't know she remembered. The lead rider sneered, "You really think this is your fight, cowboy?" Cole's voice was steady. "You came after a mother and her child. That makes it mine." The man laughed. "You'll regret this." "Already have," Cole said quietly, and fired the first shot. The crack echoed through the valley, scattering crows into the pale morning sky. Chaos erupted, horses reared, men shouted, and the air filled with smoke. Mara clutched her son, tears streaking her face as the sound of gunfire tore through the silence of her prayers. When it ended, the storm was gone, but so was Cole, vanished into the dust. Mara ran outside, heart hammering. 2 men lay wounded, one had fled. And there, by the old oak, Cole knelt, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping through his shirt. "Cole," she cried, dropping beside him. He tried to smile. "Told you, I'd stay till morning." She pressed her hand against his wound, tears spilling freely. "Don't you dare leave now," she whispered. He looked at her with fading strength and said, "Then don't let go." Mara dragged Cole inside with trembling hands, her breath ragged and her heart breaking. Blood soaked through her shawl as she pressed it against his wound. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please, Cole, stay." His skin was pale, eyes fluttering between pain and stubborn will. "You're shaking," he murmured. "You should run. And leave you," she said fiercely. "You saved my son, my life. I'm not going anywhere." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the land quiet, too quiet, like the world holding its breath for what came next. Hours passed before the town doctor arrived, guided by Mara's desperate ride. Into town, Cole drifted in and out of consciousness, whispering her name even in fever. The doctor worked silently, stitching the wound with practiced hands. "He's strong," the doctor said finally. "But he needs rest. Keep him warm, keep him still." Mara nodded, tears glistening in her lashes. As the doctor left, she sat by Cole's bedside, holding his hand. His fingers twitched weakly around hers, as if afraid she might disappear. Days turned to weeks. Cole healed slowly, his body regaining strength though his mind stayed distant. Mara cooked, cleaned, and mended fences around his ranch, refusing to leave even after the danger had passed. "You don't owe me this," he told her one morning, watching her hang clothes under the wide sky. She looked back at him, smiling softly. "You were my husband for a night, Cole Turner. Maybe that's all it takes to make a man part of your life forever." He didn't know how to answer that. He just smiled faintly and helped her hang the next shirt. The town whispered about them, how the widow stayed with the rancher, how they worked side by side like they'd been married for years. But Mara ignored the gossip. Every morning she woke before sunrise, fed the animals, and watched the horizon from the porch. Sometimes Cole joined her, silent, sipping coffee. One morning, he said, "I used to think I'd never care for anyone again." She looked at him, the wind playing with her hair. "And now?" she asked. He hesitated. "Now I'm scared to care too much." Mara understood that fear. She'd lost too much to trust happiness easily. But when she watched Cole lift her boy onto his horse, teaching him how to hold the reins, she felt something gentle grow inside her, something she hadn't felt since before her husband died. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she found herself standing close enough to feel Cole's breath. "You can let go of the past, Cole," she said softly. "It doesn't mean forgetting. It means living." He looked at her, eyes dark with emotion. "I don't know how." "Then let me show you." That night, under the fading light of the fire, they talked for hours. About loss, about loneliness, about the quiet pain that follows even the bravest hearts. Cole told her about his wife, how she'd died in childbirth. Mara listened, tears falling silently. When he finished, she whispered, "You're not the only one who's been broken." Their hands brushed, fingers intertwining without meaning to. For the first time in years, both of them felt seen, not as survivors, but as souls finding home again. Spring arrived, painting the valley with wildflowers. Cole had nearly healed, though a faint scar remained, a reminder of the night that had changed everything. Mara's son, little Jamie, laughed freely now, chasing chickens through the yard. Cole often caught himself watching them, a warmth blooming in his chest he didn't dare name. But deep inside, he feared it wouldn't last. "You'll move on someday," he told Mara one afternoon. She looked at him, eyes steady. "You really think I'd leave the only place that ever felt like home?" Trouble returned one quiet afternoon. The man who'd once threatened her came back, this time with a sheriff's warrant forged in greed, claiming Mara had stolen property. Fear clenched her chest as the sheriff approached the ranch. But before she could speak, Cole stepped forward. "That debt's mine now," he said, voice firm as stone. The sheriff blinked. "Yours?" Cole nodded. "She's my wife. Anything she owes, I'll pay." Mara froze. The words hung heavy, truer than either expected. "You don't have to lie anymore," she whispered later. "Who said I was lying?" He replied. The days after that felt different. Cole wasn't pretending anymore. He was building something real. He added a room to the cabin, bought a new cradle for Jamie, and taught Mara how to ride properly. She laughed more often now, her laughter echoing across the fields like sunlight made sound. One evening, he brought home a small silver ring. "It's not fancy," he said awkwardly, holding it out. "But it's real." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "So is what we have," she whispered, and let him slip it onto her finger. Their wedding was simple. A few townsfolk, a preacher, and a sky wide enough to hold all the love they'd learned to believe in again. When Cole lifted Mara's veil, his voice trembled. "That night, you asked me to be your husband for just one night," he said softly. "Guess I never stopped." She smiled through tears. "Good, because I never stopped being your wife." The crowd cheered quietly, though most just wiped their eyes. It wasn't a fairy tale, it was something better, a truth born from pain and faith. Life on the ranch wasn't easy, but it was full of laughter, storms, harvests, and the rhythm of shared days. Mara's son grew strong, calling Cole, "Pa," without hesitation. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, Mara would find Cole staring at the horizon. "What are you thinking about?" she'd ask. He'd smile. "About how I rode past a lantern one night, and it led me home." She'd lean against him, and they'd watch the sunset in silence, knowing the storm that once bound them had now become their shelter. Years later, when travelers passed through and asked about the ranch with the silver windmill, folks would tell the story of the widow and the rancher. How she whispered a desperate plea one stormy night, and how that single moment changed two broken lives. Some said it was fate, others said it was love. But those who knew them said simply, it was courage. The courage to ask, and the courage to stay. Cole and Mara grew old together, their hair turning silver like the moonlight that once witnessed their fear. The ranch thrived, and Jamie became a fine man, inheriting both his mother's heart and his stepfather's strength. Every year, on the night of that old storm, Cole would light a lantern by the porch. Mara would ask, smiling, still remembering that night. And he'd answer, "How could I forget the moment a whisper saved my life?" When Cole passed peacefully one spring morning, the sky was golden, and the lantern still burned by the window. Mara sat beside him, holding his hand until the sun rose. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You were my husband, for every night." Her tears fell onto his hand, warm as love itself. And when she looked outside, the windmill turned slowly in the dawn breeze, like the world itself bowing to the love that began with a whisper and ended as forever.